So there's a great misconception that really needs to be cleaned up and cleared up. People continue to articulate that it's fraud, that we've been deceived. Perhaps deceived, but it doesn't necessarily constitute as fraud. People really need to start breaking down contract law 101. Contract law involves multiple parties, and a contract, just the same way a trust can be created by actions, it can be inferred, it can be implied, it can be written. Contracts can manifest just the same way. You make a phone call, you say you're going to meet at a certain time at a certain place, the other party doesn't show up. That's a breach of a verbal contract, a verbal agreement. And a lot of people keep whining and crying about this fraud shit. And I'll admit, I was a little butthurt myself. I used to run around saying, it's all fraud, it's all fraud. It's not fraud. They absolutely have a right to do what they're doing. The power to create never is greater than that which was already in existence by the creator. When you understand these principles, these basic fundamental principles, remember I always tell you guys, I operate by sound principles and sound doctrines, right? When you understand these sound principles, the truth be told, they had a right to do what they did. They did it. And you also have a right not to do business with them. Where is the fraud? Show me the fraud. It's not fraud. People get all upset. They say, well, CPS, I was forced into it. You weren't forced into CPS. You weren't forced into doing business with these people. They presented an opportunity. They made an offer. Whether your silence became acquiescence and you ended up in a courtroom, or what you perceived to be a courtroom, okay, the illusion of court, and somebody, a ministerial administrator, put a contract before you, and you signed the motherfucker without reading it. All right? Wasn't fucking fraud. You had an opportunity. Notice an opportunity. All right? The more I research this stuff, the more I realize that people are their own worst enemy, and the greatest disservice I could do to anybody is to tell them that it's fraud and that you have rights and that all this benign shit, when in all actuality the best thing I can do for everybody is inform them that contract creates the law. For all intents and purposes, the United States is lawless. Contract creates the law and equity follows the law. And if it's a unilateral contract, meaning that you're contracting with their principal for which they work for, their agents and agencies or trustees on behalf of their principal, you can terminate that contract. So with CPS, go back, read Title 42, and realize that in Title 42 supports your authority to terminate, revoke, and rescind your signature on the contract. Title 42 also tells you who you have to send that rescission of contract to. Health and Human Services. Now, if you're intellectually inclined and you really mean business, all right, then you might want to send that to the Health and Human Resources in the county, the Health and Human Resources in the state, and then the Health and Human Resources of Washington, D.C., right? But you got to go find it. It's in Title 42. I don't have my computer in front of me here. I tell you exactly where it's at. So for those of you battling with CPS, shut down the fucking contract, baby. You got the whole ball of wax in your hand. You're the only signator to that motherfucking contract that has any damn authority. I want to point something out. A lot of people go, oh, well, they take my rights. They're violating my rights. I can guarantee you, after the amount of reading I've been doing over the last few months about this family court business, they didn't take your rights. You gave them away. You can't even give them away. That's a statement that needs to be redacted. You waived them. You waived them. You couldn't give them away. You couldn't sell them if you want. but you can waive them by entering into a contract, negating your rights, accepting privileges and immunities, and being tossed into their fucking three-ring circus because of our ignorance. Same thing happens with the fucking driver's license, ladies and gentlemen. The DMV in bed with the Secretary of State's office, who sells your private intellectual information to other organizations because you didn't read the fine print. You didn't ask for any blind adhesion contracts to be brought forward. You didn't ask them to disclose the nature and the cause of the contract. You didn't ask for vital information of a vital nature. And because of that, you entered into a contract. But, as I articulated before, the most beautiful thing about you being able to contract, Article 1, Section 10, Article 1, Section 9, the most beautiful thing about it is, if you have the power to enter into the contract, you also have the power to remove yourself from that contract. I've been doing a lot of studying about the status correction, and like I had a polite conversation, a pleasant conversation with a gentleman the other night. I've done a lot of things in a courtroom that most people could only dream of, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, what paperwork did you use? What can I see your documents? What exactly did you provide to the court?" A lot of the stuff I do is oral. A lot of the documents that other people have, I don't have recorded. I don't have certain documents that other people do claiming their status. I orally assert myself, and I pay attention to what they're saying because the law is spoken. All right? If you can stand on your square, you ain't bad. It takes a lot of fighting to get there. You don't get to jump in the boxing ring with Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson and decide you're a boxer. You're just a punching bag, a glutton for punishment. And through your trials and tribulations, you will learn this stuff. There isn't a lawyer worth his weight in salt in the United States of America. I'm just going to say it like that, because there isn't. They're all lying, looting, pandering pieces of shit. All right? So, under the Reorganization Act, 1871, with the first executive order, Congress, the legislator, the executive branch, the judiciary, they're all playing a game with you guys, all right? And you're right, Bruce, it's all just a fucking game. Learn how to play it, and you'll enjoy it. I used to have a lot of animosity towards these people. In some respects, I still do. Because it's disgusting to me how these people run around with titles of nobility, calling themselves honorable, while denying their brothers and sisters access to the kingdom of heaven, right? The land of milk and honey. Because as above, so below. It exists here. I see people all the time walking around in heaven because they got to figure it out. They know what's up. They know, most importantly, who they are. And that makes a world of difference. You know, they don't run around proclaiming to be U.S. citizens. They know the negative connotation that comes with being called Mr. or Sir. They don't put up with any of that shit. You call them Mr. or Sir, them are fighting words, ladies and gentlemen. You know, one of the 65-year-old Marines that kind of took me under his wing when I was 13 years old, I called him Sir one day, and I found out how big of a fucking mistake that was. He says, "You don't ever call me Sir. I work for a living." I was like, Jesus, I didn't think I would offend you with that. He said, "Man, you just don't even know the words that you're using and what they mean." So it's important to go look up these words and understand how you're communicating and what implications your oral or written communications have. What kind of consequences will come of it. Corporate denial. Very important document to create. I'm not going to tell you how to create your corporate denial, but you can go look up corporate denial and start researching it. It is extremely important because in their admiralty courts, they're allowed to presume and assume. That's why the lawyer in every case where they are prosecuting puts you down as a resident. Did you call yourself a resident? Did you state that you were a resident? Furthermore, what evidence do they have that you're a resident? They don't have any. That's right. They're presuming and assuming you to be or to exhibit a certain status. And if you don't correct their assumption and presumption, then you acquiesce to it, and this thing called latches occurs. All right, and you know, I've found ways of getting around latches. I've talked to a number of people. Kurt Padegrass and I just had a wonderful conversation about it the other day. Although it's a last resort, it's kind of a Hail Mary to correct the record per se, but it can be done. But in order to prevent all that stuff, a notice by way of special appearance is very powerful, ladies and gentlemen. I, man, appear by special appearance. You know, take judicial notice. I'm appearing by special appearance. That's a direct challenge to jurisdiction, period. Cut and dry. And when you read about establishing jurisdiction, you'll also read that they are to inform you of the nature and the cause. They're very quick to always tell you what the cause is. The cause will be some benign statute, code, city ordinance, rule, regulation, all right? That will typically be the cause. But they will never tell you the nature of the transaction. And pay attention to the words I'm using, because I'm using transaction specifically. Because the nature of everything that they're doing is banking. It's business, baby. So don't be upset. Don't get butthurt about it. Demand the 1099 OID from the prosecutor. Get the full fucking accounting. We're just here to do business, baby. And I want to make sure that trust residue, those rents, profits, and proceeds, those futures and annuities, get back to the beneficiary. So in that capacity, I'm coming in as the fucking trustee. So I can give you guys orders and tell you what the fuck to do. So I can represent the estate and take care of it as the authorized representative, otherwise identified as the trustee. I don't have a fucking name in that courtroom. If you need to identify me, if you need something to call me, you can call me the trustee. Everybody says, oh, the trustee is the wrong position to have. You want to be the executor. Not necessarily. There are times it might be beneficial for you to be the executor, but being the trustee, you get to handle your own shit. So these are things that you learn as you start to study. There ain't nothing wrong with being the trustee. Furthermore, there's nothing wrong within a constructive trust within the admiralty. So we are the trustee and beneficiary. Yes. You can also be the grantor settler. You can be the grantor and the beneficiary. And they'll say, oh, you can't do that. They're right. You can't do that simultaneously. You can't be the grantor and the beneficiary at the same moment in time. But I can be the trustee while I'm in that courtroom. When I walk the fuck out of there with a goddamn check, I turn around and I become the beneficiary. It's just that simple. So a lot of it is about understanding, but I'll tell you this much: it ain't fraud. It ain't fraud. It's all contract. They're contracting you in to the United States District of Columbia. They're contracting you in to their private special jurisdiction where they have what is called public policy, which is really private law that applies to employees and volunteers who voluntarily subject themselves to it. Oh, they were all frauds. I knew that shit was going to come. I don't know how else to help you guys. I'm sitting here telling you how the fuck it works. And you can take it from me. You don't have to. Fuck, go talk to some other people. They'll tell you. The very learned people will tell you this ain't fucking fraud. It ain't fraud. And there's one clear-cut, concise way to prove that it's not fraud. You want to know why it's not fraud? Because there's a fucking remedy. If it could ever be construed as fraud, then you would have to prove that there is no remedy. And you want to know where the remedy lies? The remedy lies within your head and the way that you carry yourself and the way you conduct business. Period. You are the remedy. You got to learn stuff. They operate through a public trust doctrine. In some instances, yes. But when you start to read Congress's quote-unquote policies or laws that they create, you will see there are times where they're creating quote-unquote public policy or public law or law, if you will, for the United States District of Columbia, territories, and 50 states. The 50 states is not the Union of States, ladies and gentlemen. All right? And furthermore, there aren't 50 states. There's only 48 if you really look at it, because Hawaii was a hostile takeover by the military after 1942 when Japan bombed a bunch of shit. And I have my dates wrong, I'm certain of that, but somewhere in the 40s and the 50s when they decided to bomb Pearl Harbor, right? And then we needed that as an asset to the United States, or the Washington, D.C. District of Criminals needed it for their military post. So the attack on Japan was more feasible because we had a place where refueling and all that good jazz, right? So when you look at those things, and you start to realize that Alaska was part of a purchase. It was never a state. So there's really, in the Union, 48 states. Not to mention that Hawaii, in and of itself, is a sovereign nation unto itself. They're their own fucking people over there. The Samoans, they're some badass people. They're warriors unto themselves. So there's a big debate about whether or not there's 50 states. Well, if you talk to the native Hawaiian people over there, they'll straight up tell you, no, we're a free sovereign nation unto ourselves. Which is really interesting because they fight about it all the time in court over there. I've seen videos where the judge is like, you will speak English, this is an American court, you will speak English, and they're speaking their native tongue saying, hey, fuck you. You can't force me to speak your guys' bullshit. And their language, quite frankly, is probably more true than English, because English is, after all, nothing more than an art form. It's what it is. So, you want out of her, you want to come up out of her, cancel all your fucking contracts. Terminate them. In abitio, from the beginning. Failure to disclose. It's not mutually beneficial. I've come to discover that this contract that I've entered into is causing me harm, damage, and loss, day in and day out. You guys are privately selling my private intellectual property to third-party interveners who are now using that privileged information against me, causing me harm, damage, and loss. And because of that, I'm out. You're reaping the rewards of my private intellectual property, and you're not cutting me in on it, and all it's doing is causing me harm. When's the last time the DMV gave you a full financial forensic audit of how much money or credits on account or ledgering that they've made off of your signature, off your original contract? They don't. They never have. And quite frankly, if you ask them for it, I doubt they'll produce it. They might, if you sue them for $1 and then subpoena everything and have them bring forward their records. But ultimately, the choice is yours. Become learned and do something about it, or just squawk and talk all day and cry that it's fucking fraud. And the truth of the matter is, there is no fraud. You're only defrauding yourself when you don't believe that you have the power to terminate a contract that you knowingly, willingly, and intentionally created because you thought it benefited you somehow. Then you realized all of a sudden that you didn't gain any rights per se. You actually got privileges and alleged immunities. And those privileges and immunities, if man giveth, man can taketh away, and all of a sudden you don't like them anymore. You want them when they're beneficial to you, but you don't want to bear the burden of the loss or the hardship that comes with it. Well, there's a maximum of law for that. You know, he who gains the benefit also bears the burden. Point blank and simple. It's just what it is. There are many nations throughout the world that have been found without law. None without maxims. That means the maximum is the highest standing principle in the common law as sound doctrine, if you will, sound principles. And they're normally short, pithy sentences with a powerful punch that nobody can overcome. Most of the maxims I use have been in existence for thousands of years, if not tens of thousands of years, and they will never change, and they will never be defeated, and they will never be overcome. So it's just a matter of ascending of the mind. Now, I had a conversation with a gentleman last night, said, oh, everybody's stateless, this, that, and the other. That may be true, perhaps, but then again, the power to create can never be greater than the power that created it, okay? So just because Congress and Abraham Lincoln and the Reconstruction Act of 1871 wandered off and created this new entity, and then in 1933, there was a bankruptcy pertaining to that entity, and so on and so forth, doesn't mean that the original de jure republic doesn't still fucking exist. It does. It's there. There's no magic to it. It's just simply asserting yourself, making your declaration a fact. A declaration is more of a term used for war. Instead of going to war, maybe the idea of going to peace isn't so bad. Perhaps instead of a declaration, make an assertion of who you are, where you hail from, where your permanent allegiance lies, right? For me, it's the kingdom of heaven. For you, it could be the state that you're pledging an allegiance to. I typically pledge an allegiance to the people that are on this earth and charged with the duty of doing the good works of the Heavenly Father, right? I want all of mankind to live peacefully and in harmony and know the difference between up and down. It's the law of nature, and nature's God, right? Do not steal, do not rape, do not murder, do not bear false witness against your fellow brothers and sisters, right? Pretty simple, sound doctrines that quite frankly, most people learn before they ever get to grade school. So for all of those people out there that are running around saying it's fraud, I'm here to tell you right now, the only one that is cheating themselves at this point would be the one that can look back at you in the mirror. Because I just gave you the ticket. It's that fucking simple. It's all contract, whether it be implied, presumed, or assumed. You must speak. There's a duty to speak. If you have a duty to know, then you have a duty to speak, and you have a duty to correct the record. Let the record show the record's been kept in error. The date of birth is incorrect. The name is incorrect. Under the doctrine of idiom sonum, although it looks the same and sounds the same, it will not be interpreted as the same as the doctrine of idiom sonum allows you jackwagons to presume and assume that it is the same because it looks the same and sounds the same. All right? You got to get up on their ass. You got to know who you are. Notice to cease and desist. Absolutely. So, you can waive your rights. You can't sell them, you can't buy them, you can't trade them, but you can waive them. All right? And that's a hard one to learn. The old adage, if you don't know your rights, you don't have any rights, is very true. All right? It's accurate. It's factual. You can blame the school system all fucking day long for never teaching you. That's just a huge fucking pity party. All right? Do I agree that we could change this nation in about 5 to 10 years if we altered the educational programming and system that's in place? Absolutely, you bet. I think that would make a tremendous difference. Are they going to allow us to do it? Abso-fucking-lutely not. It is way too lucrative to keep people fucking stupid. All right? So they're not going to allow us to do that. If you want to change the curriculum that your offspring are learning, you better start homeschooling them. Or find people who are very well educated that you can kick a buck to throughout the week that will educate your offspring or something along those lines. Find an alternative method for bringing up your offspring. There's a difference between civil law and natural law. Civil law is Roman civil law. I don't care how you look at it. Civil law always comes with privileges and immunities, all right? I give a shit less about immunities because I have unalienable rights. The Congress and the legislator don't have the authority to create anything that binds me because I am only bound by one law. That's natural law, God's law, all right? So, when you think about these things, when you really analyze them, I've had agents and agency tell me, "Oh, Derek, you don't think the law applies to you." It's quite the contrary, actually. The law that I abide by supersedes the superficial law that you operate under, identified as color of law, although having the resemblance of law, the appearance of law, which in fact is not law. I operate by the true law. Honor your agreements. Know thyself. Know the contracts you enter into, right? And above all else, be good to your neighbors. Be good to each other, right? Do not steal, rape, maim, harm, damage, injure another. My rights stop where yours begin. It takes a lot of growing up because as a young adolescent, being a physical guy, everybody always wants to physically fight, but that is never the answer. The answer is to become intellectually superior to everybody around you and being able to hold your own, being able to negotiate contracts. That's where your power is. Are you waiving your rights when you accept FRNs would be a good question. Does accepting FRNs constitute a contract and agreement would be another? Okay, well, that is a good point you're making. There's this thing called the doctrine of necessity, the law of necessity. And the law of necessity trumps everything, which essentially, let's just say for hypothetical sense that I was a United States citizen. A United States citizen is required to abide by the civil law, which is a social compact that everybody is purported to have entered into and agreed to, okay? And then by conforming under the civil law, I would have to have a driver's license to engage in being on the roadways, right? Let's just say one day I'm hungry, the grocery stores are all closed, I have a 12-gauge shotgun, I have the means, the ability, the knowledge, and the know-how on how to creep, stalk, and find prey in order to feed myself, right? I don't have a permit and it's out of season. I have, out of the law of necessity, which really derives from the military, that's what they're ruling over right now. They're saying under the law of necessity, under an emergency, they have the right, which is like a soft martial law, to lock everybody down, okay? But out of the law of necessity, for me, I have the right to go out and pop a turkey out of the tree, pluck his feathers, clean him out, throw him in my oven, and put food in my belly. Because out of necessity, I have to eat in order to live, right? Just the same notion. Maybe I don't have a shotgun. Maybe I don't have those means to be able to provide in that manner, but I know how to make a fishing line with a fishing hook and put a set line out there so I can catch me a fish. I don't have a permit, but out of the law of necessity, because I don't have FRN notes or what it takes to acquire something from the store, then I have that inherent right to forage for food. Those are the two examples I can give you about the law of necessity, but the law of necessity really comes by way of military occupation. And that's where the law of necessity doctrine that I see enforced, anyway, really hails from. It's through military occupation. But when you start to read, and a gentleman showed me this the other night, the Northwest Ordinance Papers, never properly executed from what he said. I haven't had an opportunity to really read through them, but through the Northwest Ordinance Papers, Abraham Lincoln didn't free the slaves. It was always written that all men are free. Okay, so what did Abraham Lincoln really do? Well, it appears to me, by gaining and acquiring this knowledge, that he merely went along with the script. He merely went along with the program. I'm not saying that he went along to get along. I'm saying that whether he was dubiously duped into it or not, all men were free anyway. I mean, it was established in the Magna Carta. It's been established from the beginning of time. All men are created equal and free, all right? That's in your preamble, your Constitution. It's in the Federalist Papers. It's in the Northwest Territory Papers, or the Northwest Documentation. So Abraham Lincoln didn't free anybody. In fact, he did just the opposite. He enslaved everybody. When you really look at history, you'll find very quickly Abraham Lincoln didn't free a damn soul. Not one. So now that you know that they're all underneath the executive branch, administering the largest bankruptcy the world has ever seen, maybe you can decide to not participate in it anymore. Maybe you decide to go ahead and let the Attorney General know, the Secretary of State, the President, also the Governor, Attorney General, and Secretary of State, and Health and Human Resources, which is now Health and Human Services, that you're not a charity case, that you're not over here and going to continue to bolster their form of society, and that you would rather live peacefully and sensibly with all your rights intact. So there's no facts in dispute. I waive all benefits without God. I'm not subject to your Roman civil law. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I mean, the biggest thing is that you're not a U.S. citizen. And I'm not stateless. And my permanent residence is in the kingdom of heaven. I'm just merely a sojourner here, a visitor, if you will. All right? And I have all the protections and rights afforded to me by the Heavenly Father to live peacefully and sensibly and under the common law, so long as I cause no harm, injure no man, trespass not against them, there's no reason for anybody to take interest in me, period. Cut and dry. It's that fucking simple. So I hope this helps you out a little bit, but I saw a bunch of messages saying it's all fraud, it's all fraud, it's all fraud. You can say that all fucking day long. You can say that all day long. And if you continue to cry those big fucking crocodile tears believing it's fraud, the only one you're cheating is yourself. You entered into contract not knowing what you were doing, but let me remind you, ignorance of the law excuses fucking no one. No one. All right? That's part of everybody being treated equally under the law, equal protection of the law. Nobody is allowed to use ignorance of the law as an excuse, ever. That goes for your county clerks, your judges, state troopers, sheriffs, whatever title they fucking hold. Ignorance of the law excuses no one. So then what really becomes the issue? What really is the problem when we analyze this? The problem, my own worst enemy, no bullshit, was me. And it took me a long time to see that, over fucking 8-9 years of studying all this googly gawk fucking crazy ass cracker shit. No joke. My mentors used to laugh at me. I'd be so fucking mad. Blood vessels just bursting. You know, fucking my forehead looked like I was in a fight with somebody, for fuck's sake. Just all bruised up because I would get so mad that my blood vessels in my forehead would fucking burst. You know, my eyeballs would be all bloodshot and red because I'm so fucking pissed. And they go, Derek, you're right, but you're wrong. Oh, man, talk about just sending me through the fucking roof. I thought I was going to have an aneurysm at fucking 30 years old. I was so fucking pissed off all the time. And the same mentors also told me, Derek, as soon as you figure this out, you're going to have a lot of fun, buddy. You're going to have a lot of fun because the amount of respectable authority you wield from having the knowledge and being able to enforce it is unbelievable. But at the same time, it comes with accountability and responsibility. And these are two qualities that you must possess. And if you don't possess them now, you must gain to respect and acknowledge those two responsibilities and attributes. And you must learn how to harness them and take good care of them. Because you can't run around like a Neanderthal just wanting to whack everybody over the head with a fucking club with this knowledge. You have to be honorable and give notice and opportunity. Tell them to cease and desist. Let them know who you are and where your authority derives from, and that you are a state national, right? You're a member of the Union state without the federal zone, not within a military occupied zone, because remember, a state can't be kept within a state. They cannot create the U.S. states overlaying your state. They can't do that, all right? And that was something that was pointed out to me last night that was very impressive, and I went and did a little research on it to see if he was blowing smoke up my ass, and I was actually pretty impressed because he was 100% correct. According to the law of nations, you cannot put a state within another state. You can't do an overlay of a state on a state, meaning that they're using imaginary lines, all right? They're not actually using meets and bounds. They're using lot, block, parcel ID number, zone improvement project number, and address, along with the zip code, which is zone improvement project number. Zone improvement project number belongs to the military, Washington, D.C., District of fucking Criminals, DOD bullshit, okay? The lot, block, parcel ID number may belong to the municipality or the county, and the address definitely belongs to the municipality. So just remove all that shit, and I'm not part of your bullshit fucking program. Establish the meets and bounds of your land, not the real estate and property, and let them know who the fuck you are. Have a place of nativity. Only ships and vessels are birthed. Now, somebody said last night that, well, when they say vessel in a document, Dirk, you realize they're talking about a boat, right? Not necessarily. If you understand trust law and you understand the unum sanctum, the trilogy of palpables that were created, they were talking about vessels back then. The Cesta KV Act of 1666, they were talking about vessels back then. And that wasn't talking about boats. Okay? So a vessel can be a lot of things. A vessel isn't necessarily a boat. But anyway, that's my rant for this morning. It's not fraud because you have a remedy, and that remedy is you. You ascending of the mind, acknowledging that you're your own worst enemy and that you alone are the only one that can do a fucking thing about it. Look, you got a bully fucking you up at school. What are you going to do? You can start hitting the weights. You're going to start wrestling around with your buddies next door. You're going to start learning how to defend yourself. And one day when that bully gets out of line, you're going to put his little pecker right in the fucking dirt. You got to do the same thing here. Only this time it's not a physical altercation. Mentally, you're going to have to exercise this muscle in between your ears. You're going to have to start to get learned. Repetition, writing it out, saying it verbally, believing it in your mind, body, heart, spirit, and soul, that the information that you have acquired is true, correct, factual, and accurate. And then you're going to put them on notice. And you're going to give them an opportunity to rebut and rebuke. And when they can't rebut and rebuke, you take that shit into a small claims court for $1 and establish your rights and get a declaratory judgment. Maybe even create an injunction. Do your injunction. Let the Secretary of State, Attorney General, and the Governor all know, hey, look, motherfuckers, this is all fine and dandy and gravy that you guys operate on the commercial side. You're doing all kinds of willy-nilly shit. But just to let you know, I am not one of your subject volunteer surf fucking vagrants that you can accost at will, throw in a cage, and profit from. All right? You will treat me with respect. I will give you the respect that is due and owing to you as well. And we will have a beautiful working fucking relationship together. When we go into court, we say we are trustees, not beneficiary. Fuck yeah. Trustee has power. You could also go in if you want to be really crafty. You can go in as the entitlement holder, which is commercial in nature. And the nice thing about an entitlement holder is they carry very limited liability, but they also have the ability to give orders. All right. So there's the entitlement holder, the trustee, the beneficiary. You could be the surety, so long as your right of subrogation is going to be upheld and that you're going to be availed. But being the trustee, you're a fucking shot caller for the estate. Why not fill the role of trustee? Why bestow that upon some other motherfucker that's trained by the Bar Association to rob you fucking blind? Why not step up as the trustee and tell them, hey, this is what we require when you're doing business with us. I'm the trustee. Are you the name? No, I'm not the name. I'm the trustee that manages the affairs of the constructive trust in the estate that you guys have brought up. Now let's get on with it. I need the 1099 OID. I need a full comprehensive financial report and audit on this estate and how much this escrow is going to be generating from the futures and annuities from the securities that this jackass over here to the right, who proclaims to be the co-beneficiary in the absence of knowing who the beneficiary is, I need him to go ahead and produce all them documents, the SF-24, 25, 25A, penal sum, penal bonds, warehouse bonds, bid bonds, performance bonds, and any other bonds or securities that may have been generated without the knowledge of anybody from this estate. And being that I'm the trustee and nobody's been in contact with me, I have reason to believe that this all might be a violation of FinCEN. A financial crime may be afoot here. So go ahead and show us where the escrow is held, who the agent for the escrow is that's holding and warehousing this account, and who the beneficiary is listed on the escrow account. And to my knowledge, as a trustee, there's a check floating around here somewhere, because when somebody charges up an estate, creates a constructive trust in order to get the whole shit show on the road, all right, there's a check waiting around here, all right? They've already got, he who provides the ends has to provide the means, especially in this fictitious monetary system. So if they created the charge, then they also got the fucking check. If I want you to build a house for me, and I also have to provide the lumber and the materials, right? Okay? So it's just some fundamental basics, but terminate them contracts. See how much better your life turns out. Put the sheriff on notice about what you're doing. Guarantee you when he runs to the prosecuting attorney is going to tell him, oh, that guy's crazy. He's one of those sovereign citizens. And here's another thing. When you got jackasses running around using the FBI's terminology to term you a domestic terrorist, I hope those boys can back that shit up. All right, that's slander and defamation of character. All right, and one of your rights, one of your intangible rights, is your right to your what do they call it? Your character, right? It's an assassination on your character when they slander you and defame you by calling you what is perceived to be a domestic terrorist. And not only is it dangerous that they're doing that, because it gives these gun-toting morons with an IQ of less than 70 the ideology that somehow now you're a threat to them, their family, and the entire fucking community. So now they basically put a death warrant on your fucking head because some gun-toting moron that doesn't understand a fucking thing about law now perceives you to be a domestic terrorist of his community. That's dangerous, all right? They're putting your life in danger, and they should be held accountable for that shit. And how are you going to do it? Well, summons them all to fucking court. Get them to testify on the record. The sheriff or the dipshit 70 IQ fucking gun-toting moron gets on the stand and says, yep, that's what the prosecutor told me. He's a sovereign citizen. Great. Now fucking get that damn fucking prosecutor on the stand and get him to answer for his defamation and slander and maybe even question about how much he puts your life in danger, knowing that by defining you as something that is perceived to be taboo or bad, endangered your life. And take him to the cleaner for that shit. You know, these people are supposed to be performing honest services. Now, I will go as far to say that to some degree they do, but in most instances they are not. But again, who's the one at fault? They or us? Was it our actions that created the presumption and assumption that we are subject to them, that we are non-cognitus, that we aren't cognizant thinkers, that we don't know how to handle our affairs? Or was it them that dubiously tricked us into doing something that if we'd had the knowledge we would have otherwise not done? Well, I can honestly tell you, after helping a number of people, there are some people that as soon as you help them, they fall right back in line, pick up the fucking bag of bullshit and lies, and go about their way. Where there are other people that find out about the bullshit and they successfully apply themselves, even to this day, continuing to write public officials and put them on notice about who they are and what they're discovering. So the choice really is yours. Ultimately, I don't want to hear anybody else say it's fucking fraud. If you're following me and you're saying it's fraud, it's complete and utter bullshit. The notion that another man has authority over you prior to your consent is bullshit. It's bullshit. So find out what contracts you entered into and shut them down. Another thing I want to talk to you about is the hospital. The hospital is, in fact, where your mother, your father signed over a power of attorney over you and your estate. That's why they end up doing medical kidnappings and all that other bullshit. Please, for the love of God, go terminate that fucking contract between the hospital administrator and yourself. Go terminate that shit. Write him a nice thank you letter. I appreciate you taking care of the estate and maintaining it in my absence. I am now cognizant. I'm clearly aware of what's going on and what transpired. I am now effectively of sane, sound mind, capable of handling my own affairs, and effective immediate from in abitio from the beginning. I am now collapsing the power of attorney. I'm rescinding, I'm terminating, I'm revoking this hospital administrator's ability to medically kidnap me, force me to do something that I otherwise wouldn't do, completely terminating your power of attorney over myself and the estate manifested through the master application of the birth certificate. All right? Terminate that shit. Let them know that. File it on the public record under miscellaneous filings. When you sign that notice, sign it under a notarial seal and turn around and take it to the Secretary of State and have it fucking authenticated, then submit it to them. Submit it onto the public record like that. Now it's admissible in court. All right? There's some little tricks I've learned along the way that are pretty fucking cool. So if you're tired of getting your documents in court just thrown out for benign fucking reasons, sign it before a notary and run that motherfucker to the Secretary of State, have them authenticate the signature of the notary, then go take it and slap it on a public record, take it from the public records and slap that motherfucker into a court case. Now watch if they throw that motherfucker out of your court case. They can at that point. It's admissible as fucking evidence, all right? Anyway, I love you guys. Thanks for joining me. I got a lot of work to do today. The reason I got on here about this rant today is everybody talking about fraud. Fraud, 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 fraud. It's not fraud if you fucking participated in it, is it? And if it was fraud and you participated in it, well then you're part of the fucking fraud. So decide, are you a hypocrite? Or did you enter into a contract that you didn't read, you didn't understand, you didn't comprehend, and you made a mistake, and now that you're cognizant of your mistake, you're capable of fucking amending the mistake, correcting the mistake by terminating the contract. The choice, ultimately, is yours. Thanks for joining me. I love you all, and we'll talk to you real soon.